Well, welcome back to Casting Call. I'm Ariel Onstad here with Tess Hammock.
Hello again.
Our final segment where we're answering your questions. And a lot of you asked Tess about minors in the industry and kids in entertainment. How do you get your kids involved? What roles exist for minors? Are there laws you need to be aware of in having your children act or be involved in this crazy entertainment industry? And then just what to expect throughout the process. So, Tess, taking it away first, roles for minors.
Yes.
They're a little harder to come by, but they do exist.
Yeah, they can be. They can be a little bit harder, mostly because there is, and we'll get into this a little bit later, there's a lot of regulation around minors on set, and it can be costly. Those can be costly regulations to a production, so they don't usually open that up as much as they would, those roles for legal adults. But there are still opportunities. I mean, my goodness, look at so many of these huge projects that we've had lately.
Yes.
Lots of minors on set, Stranger Things being one of them. And then, of course, there's always going to be room for minors and children and kids. I mean, AI is good, but we're not that good just yet.
Yeah, no.
And so, of course, there's still opportunity. They're just a little less available.
That makes sense. So, with discussing regulation, what laws should people be mindful of when they have put their children into acting?
Yes, so the department that really regulates this is actually the Department of Labor. The Department of Labor,
Makes
which
sense.
makes a lot of sense. And so the Department of Labor is going to, they have a lot of laws about how many hours minors can work. They also have to have a studio tutor on set with them. They have to have schooling hours as well. You know, the Department of Labor is not going to let you slack on school just because you're already working. That's still a requirement for minors as well. And then they also have what is called a CLC, which is a child labor coordinator. And that's going to be, as a parent, your best friend as your child begins to work in acting and begins to have those long days on set. That child labor coordinator is really going to act as kind of the middleman between you, the production, the representative, which is often the parent, but can also be a driver for the child. And then the Department of Labor, they make sure that all of those laws that the Department of Labor has on the books are being followed. One of them is the child smoke law. A child cannot be present for, they cannot be present while smoke
And
is
smoking
present.
used to be so prevalent. I mean, first of all, just in any public space you went in back in the States and back in the day, but
Yes.
like movie sets, I mean, it was like a chimney.
Well, not only personal smoke, but also any special effects that they
That's
may have
interesting.
smoke for.
Yeah, because that could be chemical.
Children also cannot be present while an explicit scene is being shot. Children also must appear fully clothed in every scene that they are in as well.
Makes sense.
So those are just some of the laws, and that CLC, that child labor coordinator, is going to be your voice, because as the parent, you're not always going to be right there on that film set, but that child labor
You can
coordinator,
voice your concerns to the coordinator, and they
Yes.
make sure that things are going well.
Exactly, and they're also responsible for reporting if anything does go wrong back to the Department
Yeah.
of Labor.
Good to know. Tess, it's interesting, right? All this regulation exists surrounding movies and sets to protect children and minors. And, you know, we're starting to see this shift with the rise of social media and content creation
Yes.
that now, it used to be you would just post on social media, but now that people have made this their career and there's entire industries dedicated to this,
Yeah.
mommy bloggers are starting to face a lot of regulation. And it's such an interesting dynamic because in a film set, it's an industry, you take your child to whatever this is.
Right.
But now the film set's in your house.
Yeah.
It's in your bedroom. And Utah mommy bloggers are, you know, kind of in the point of controversy right now with this whole...
It's always Utah.
It is, honestly. Because the reality is, like, some of these child stars who
Yeah.
came from social media are now grown saying, this was the hell I was forced to endure,
Yeah.
right? This is the life I lived. What protections can we put in place to make sure that other kids aren't exploited by their families, which is
Yeah.
really sad.
That's a great question, and that's going to really come down to what does Congress and the Supreme
Yeah.
Court rule on, with a lot of respect to the freedom of speech that we have. And
Right.
there is a lot of blurred lines. There are a lot of I'd love to see regulation, and yet I'm also like,
Yes.
there is a line there,
Right.
and I don't think that anyone has a clear view of You know,
Right.
how far into someone's home do we reach?
And I think one of the biggest ways they're trying to protect children is financially. California's already passed some laws, Illinois.
California's had that law on the books for quite a while. California and New York have the most child labor laws for obvious reasons.
Yes.
I would love to see us have a little bit more here in Georgia, since we are really ramping up production as well, and we've become a great hub. I think we could see a little bit more of that. But yeah, absolutely. And the law you're referring to is actually a great one. It basically keeps a parent or the legal guardian or the representative from squandering a child's earnings that they make.
Some of it has to be set aside in a trust.
Yes. I believe 15%, if I'm not wrong. But yeah, and so there are a lot of laws, and they have thought of a lot because they've been through a little bit more than we have. Better to learn from other people's experiences than have to have our own, I always say.
Yes.
So in terms of that, when it comes to content creation, there's going to be a lot more shades of gray, if you will. Thankfully, though, on film sets, you have to be permitted as a minor.
Yeah.
You got to have a number, you got to be registered with the DOL. You got to have your CLC. And there's a lot of regulations surrounding that, so that the child is always safe and that you as the parent always feel comfortable as they're starting their entertainment career.
Yeah. Well, Tess, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is great. If you have some little ones you're trying to get into the industry, I think that you've given them some great places to start.
Yes,
so,
I hope so.
Well, we are going to go ahead and take a break, and we'll have more content for you after this, and we'll see you next week back on Casting Call.
Yes, we will.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day. Welcome into News Now. I'm Ariel Onstad, and what a pleasure to have you with us on our Sunday morning. One of the big stories we're tracking is actually quite heartbreaking, and it deals with a grieving mother now receiving death threats after the death of her nonverbal child. Our very own Lindsay Tuman has been following the latest on this, and Lindsay, the child was later found dead tragically after he went missing.
That's exactly right, Ariel. This all started late Thursday afternoon. That's when 5-year-old Indy Bullock was reported missing by his family from their apartment in Gwinnett County. Investigators did a massive search with neighboring agencies looking into the night for this missing 5-year-old boy. He was found Friday morning in a retention pond near the apartment where he lived with his family. Now, investigators have already said this was a tragic accident, but in these 3 days since this happened, this family has been dealing with the loss of their young child, trying to continue to be there and be the support system for his twin brother, and then now dealing with death threats from the community. The family lives on the first floor of this apartment building. They say that this had never happened before. Investigators believe he might have climbed over the railing of their patio on the apartment where they lived before sneaking out. But this has just been a tragic accident, and now the family has been dealing with these death threats in addition to the grief that they've felt in these days as well.
If anyone knew, have been around me and anybody, the family just, they know that I've given my entire life for my twins, even them being on the spectrum, the therapies they go to, the school, they've been in school since they were 3, all of the specific care that they need. My entire house looks like a sensory playground. Like everything I do is in the name of my children. I would never harm them. I would never purposely let anything happen to them. I just don't understand.
Just heartbreaking to listen to that mother share her grief and her continued heartbreak. At this time, the medical examiner has said that there are no signs of foul play. The autopsy is still pending. The family says that they've been so heartbroken they haven't even really started making funeral plans, but there is a GoFundMe to help them with those expenses. We have that information on our website as well, fox5atlanta.com. Ariel?
Lindsay, thank you so much. I mean, you know, it's so easy for children to get out. And of course, we appreciate you doing your due diligence to follow up on this story. We'll continue to keep up with the latest on this family. So thank you, Lindsay. Well, transitioning now as we take a look at events happening today and around our area, we want to get a look out in Brookhaven because that is where we know the Cherry Blossom Festival is happening the final day. We have our very own Caitlin Pratt out there to give us a rundown of all the goodies. So, Caitlin, I take it it's not, too lively yet, but I'm sure it's gearing up for it.
Hey, Ariel, good morning to you. Yes, the gate's just opening here in Brookhaven for the annual Cherry Blossom Festival, and you're seeing the big stage behind me. Sound check going on right now. Let me turn things around and you can see exactly what we're seeing here. And yes, it started drizzling. That's what Alex was telling us all morning long on Good Day Atlanta, that it's going to be scattered showers throughout the day. So if you are headed out this way, go ahead and plan accordingly. Now, if you've ever been to a live show, festival, anything of that sort, you know that being up front and close and personal is a really coveted spot to be. And so you're looking at some real die-hard fans right now. The legendary R&B group Boyz II Men, they're going to be the headliners. They're going to be hitting the stage here at 4:30 this afternoon. This is at Blackburn Park on Ashford Dunwoody Road. 100 plus vendors are also here in the Splash Artist Market. And there's also a kid zone, food trucks, so many things to do here. Organizers are suggesting use rideshare, take public transportation, but you're looking live as we're just getting underway here in Brookhaven. A lot to see, rain or shine, Ariel.
Caitlin, I love it. You're so right. Those diehard fans up there, they are going to make sure they get to see the group they want to see. And I have to say, my introduction to Boyz II Men was the famed Prince of Egypt movie, and I think I've been a fan ever since. May date myself there, but they're amazing.
It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday, Ariel.
Yeah. 10 out of 10 reference, 10 out of 10. Caitlin, I want to harp on a point you brought up because I know people who are coming to this need to know there is no on-site parking. So when you said take transit, take shuttles, you are right on the money because this is going to be really busy even with the rain. It seems like people are settling in and they're not going to let that keep them away. So a little preparation would probably go a long way.
100%. And Ariel, they're handing out umbrellas right now to all the spectators gathered here. Talk about really helpful situation. We love that.
Yeah, planning ahead. Look, early bird gets the worm because not only are they getting a great spot, they are also getting an umbrella. How sweet is that?
The place to be. The place to be.
Well, Caitlin, I love it. We're going to be checking in with you again throughout the morning and getting the latest. I know that you have a fun crowd, it looks like. Looks like they're settling in. So hopefully the rain stays away, you don't get too wet, and we can keep checking in to see what's happening with the Cherry Blossom Festival there in Brookhaven.
All right, thanks so much. We'll talk soon.
Bye, Caitlin. Okay, guys, so bringing it back here, we're going to talk about some other things happening in Atlanta. One of the big things happening in downtown, March Madness, right? The NCAA tournament is happening. We have 2 games today. As a result, thousands of people are expected to visit the downtown area. And what you need to know here is that when we're taking a look at this, you're going to see a lot more police officers. You're going to see specialty units as safety is top of mind throughout this process. And if you are headed to State Farm Arena, keep in mind, the arena does not require clear bags like Mercedes-Benz Stadium does, but they can't be larger. Your bag cannot be larger than 14 by 14 by 6 inches. With so many in and around State Farm, leaders are urging you to pay for parking in advance or to take MARTA because, again, keep in mind this will be a very, very busy area and you'll want to make sure you have stuff secured ahead of time so you don't have to pay a lot of money for parking last minute or, you have mapped out your route and the timing if you're planning to take MARTA. So keep in mind Tennessee and Houston are tipping off at around 2:20 this afternoon, and then Michigan State and Auburn are facing off at 5:05 p.m. We're going to expand our focus now to get a look at your weather forecast. We have meteorologist Alex Forbes standing by. And Alex, we have a busy day, right? We have the Cherry Blossom Festival. We have March Madness in downtown. Is the rain going to hold off for us with the Cherry Blossom Festival, or should we just plan accordingly for some scattered showers?
Yeah, scattered showers through the afternoon are probably a safe bet, Ariel. As we look at this into the afternoon, we're going to be looking at the overcast skies and, yes, rain at times. And that includes here over Truist Park at this hour as we look live at Cobb County. All right, let's check out the Savannah Bananas. They're also in town. The forecast into the evening tonight. First pitch at 3:30, 72 is going to be the temperature there. And then as we look at this into the afternoon and evening, we'll be looking for rain chances to remain relatively high. But here's the key is that as we watch into the afternoon, it's going to be more of a scattered variety, which means it's not going to rain necessarily at your location for the entire time. All right, just got the pollen count in, 11,159. That is extremely high, and it's the second highest Atlanta Allergy and Asthma has ever recorded, second only to yesterday, which was a record high, 14,000 and some change. Oak, pine, sweet gum, mulberry, sycamore, very much in the air. The good news is, after 5 extremely high days in a row and 7 so far this month, we are going to catch some relief in the form of some scattered showers through the afternoon. So there's that hour by hour temperatures in the 70s, maybe even a couple of storms mixed in. It is going to be a level 3 severe weather day up to the north. And I show you this to show you, in fact, that they just adjusted this and they clipped part of northwest Georgia there. Regardless, that shifts down towards Georgia tomorrow. Parts of our area, in fact, most of our area at a level 3 for damaging winds up to about 60 miles an hour, hail up to 1 inch in diameter, and an isolated tornado. Now I'm going to show you my thoughts on tomorrow here in just a second. First, for the remainder of the day today, scattered showers, maybe even a couple of non-severe thunderstorms will be possible. Again, if you're out at this Bananas game, not expecting a washout, but might expect an interruption. And then for tomorrow, this is our supposed line of strong storms, all right? Poof, gone, 8 a.m. At least that's what this particular model run does. However, I've seen several inconsistencies in the models, so I'm not overly concerned about tomorrow. Of course, we'll keep a close eye on it, but I'm not going to lose any sleep over it, nor should you. 90% chance of rain tomorrow regardless. I do think we'll see storms. It's just a question of how strong. 75 on Tuesday, and then look at this. Highs in the mid to upper 80s. Ariel, we've got records in jeopardy. As of now, I am forecasting to break that record on Friday of 85.
Wow, record-breaking pollen and some record-breaking high temperatures so soon. I don't know what that bodes for us, Alex, but
yeah. No more record breaking after this. This is it.
Yeah.
That does it. No more.
Alex, I do have one question for you, right? And maybe you can answer it, but my thought is rain's coming in. Hopefully it diminishes the pollen for us, right? It's going to make things settled and feel a little bit better. Do you anticipate the pollen to get bad again into next week, or will some of these other weather patterns keep that at bay?
Yeah, so here's the thing. Whenever it rains, it basically cleans the air, right? So even if you get a shower on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, right, you got 20% each day, I think it's going to vary based on location rather than no rain across the whole area for several days, and the past 2 days are the result of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Alex, thank you so much. I know myself, along with many others, will be thankful for this rain because we can take a little bit of a breath after all that pollen. So thank you for all your hard work. We want to keep you up to date on a story happening internationally. You've probably seen the incredible video happening in Southeast Asia, both in Thailand and Myanmar, as a 7.7 earthquake rocked the area. And we do know now that the death toll is continuing to climb. This is absolutely heartbreaking footage of just downed bridges, crumbled buildings, and you can see rescue workers trying to save people. Now, one of the things to keep in mind here is that the death toll will likely continue to climb. We know that at least 1,600 people have died so far. And that earthquake struck Myanmar on Friday, also Thailand. It toppled buildings in seconds, and it was followed by a 6.4 magnitude aftershock. When the earthquake rocked Thailand, we know it killed at least 17 people there. Several countries, including the United States, have promised to send help. The United Nations has actually set aside $5 million for relief efforts. But complicating this, Myanmar has been dealing with a bloody civil war since a military coup in 2021 ousted their democratically elected leader. So this is definitely a heartbreaking situation as people are working to figure out where their loved ones are in the affected areas and to clean up after that debris. So we will continue to keep you updated, and we'll let you know as we learn more on this developing story. For now, I'm going to go ahead and send you guys to a beautiful shot of our city here in Atlanta as we prepare to take a quick break. We'll have more news for you after this, including an interview about some news happening out of Burke County with the sheriff there. So we'll see you back here in just 2 minutes. Well, welcome back to News Now. I'm Ariel Onstadt, and we want to keep you updated about news happening throughout our region right here in Georgia. And for that, we have a special contributor, Jessica Szilagyi, who works for the Georgia Virtue. I caught up with her about some news happening in Burke County as the sheriff there is at odds with county commissioners. Take a listen.
Hey, Jessica. I'm Ariel Onstadt. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me on.
So, Jessica, you've been covering a lot of stories throughout our state, but in Burke County, you're working on something especially interesting as it relates to the sheriff and his financial disagreements with county commissioners there. Can you give us an overview?
Sure. So it's an interesting one. It's been going on for at least 4 years at this point. He's been at odds with the county commissioners, and they're constitutional officers. He's a constitutional officer, but the county commissioners are the ones charged with writing checks, actually managing the bank accounts and things like this. And all of his invoices from his office and the payroll, all that flows through the county commission. Well, he's upset about the time that it's taking to pay some of these bills. And there's been ongoing disputes about this, but they've always been paid in the past. And more recently, as in an effort, I guess, to try to assert his authority and force the issue, he looped Governor Kemp into the whole debacle and is calling on him and Attorney General Chris Carr to come down to Burke County and intervene.
So that is a pretty big update. I'm curious, does the sheriff say how he wants the governor to intervene?
No, and that's an interesting question as well, because I think everyone's wondering, what do you want him to do? I mean, of course, the governor could come down and be like, "No, everybody, if you could please just get along," you would hope they would agree, but they don't really have any authority, and the attorney general doesn't really have any authority to launch an investigation because nothing illegal, from in terms of Georgia laws, has been broken. Sheriffs and other constitutional officers have the ability to sue in a civil matter to, I guess, compel the commissioners to do what they want to in order to perform their duties. But that is a completely separate issue that does not involve Kemp or Chris Carr. So
Interesting. I'm curious, in talking about your work, the sheriff I was reading about how he thinks, right, that the county does have the money to do what it needs to do. And one of the areas he points to specifically and where the money is coming in are these speed cameras. But you were talking about how these are kind of a controversial issue in the county. I'm wondering if you could tell me why that is and why maybe county commissioners are hesitant to use funding from that source.
sure. So that's another issue that's been going on for about a year. I think they at the beginning of this school year is when they instituted those cameras in Burke County. But the sheriff's sister is the superintendent for the school system. And there is some contention and dispute about whether every box that the state law requires for the implementation of these cameras has actually been checked, and if the commissioners actually gave their vote of approval to institute these, or if it was just Sheriff Williams and his superintendent sister and the Board of Education who instituted them, because they do generate a lot of money. I think we're talking about $600,000 in the last 6 or 9 months. So I think commissioners are hesitant to just use that money. It's also not supposed to just be a slush fund. It's for law enforcement purposes. But what's interesting about what the sheriff has said in all these letters, I mean, he supplied like 50 pages of documents and old letters. He hasn't supplied to the public or to the commissioners or to Governor Kemp any invoices, any receipts, anything that would say this is exactly what we owe and they're all law enforcement purposes and the bills need to be paid.
So it sounds a little nebulous. And maybe that kind of ambiguity could be why county commissioners maybe don't feel comfortable, right? Not for me to speculate, but in having a discussion, you have to think about what they may be looking at. And one of the things that the sheriff brought up was outstanding debts to other counties, which I thought was really wild. The idea of Burke County may owe other public safety services for them helping out.
So one of the things is the sheriff has traditionally been over budget. And of course, public safety is important to everybody and it is not an inexpensive service to provide. So I think people are sympathetic to that. But the sheriff has also been one to go over his budget year after year after year. And so at some point, the county commissioners kind of have to prioritize, do we pay our county employees and the county employees for the sheriff's office first, which I think they have decided yes, and then they pay the rest of the outstanding bills as the funds become available. Again, not to speculate, but that would be the logical, that they take care of their employees first, with the understanding that you don't want to tarnish the relationships with neighboring counties. But it's also concerning that there is so much money outstanding, because that begs the question of when are invoices being sent? How often are they coming from the sheriff's office to the county commissioners? All these things. And Sheriff Williams has been in hot water before about his accounting practices, which is why the county has so much control over stuff now.
I see. And that might be the deeper root of the issue, right? Where, he's saying it maybe the finance is I guess you could say the flower on the stem, which is he's saying the county is exercising undue, control over him and his purse strings. And the county may be saying, well, we are trying to keep spending in check or trying to make sure things are organized. What kind of roadblocks have you come up in trying to cover a story like this?
So I have been covering Sheriff Williams for a few years now, and my first story about him was actually trying to obtain some credit card receipts because his office had a credit card, and the statements were all for travel, hotel, things out of way outside of Burke County and even Georgia. And what I found through open records request was that he was not maintaining any receipts. No receipts existed for tens and thousands of dollars worth of travel and things like that. Nothing to back it up, nothing to justify much of anything. And so, of course, whether those receipts existed or they just disappeared or whatever, I am not certain, but that certainly presents an issue because by then, I mean, short of a law enforcement subpoena, there's no other way to obtain the records for that. And the public is left paying the bill, but having no understanding of what for.
Right. And I think you bring up a good point, right? Because it's one thing I notice leaders often, when they want money from the government and they want taxpayer public funds and access to that, they often lean on public safety as a way to apply pressure. And is to say, you know, if you don't pay this or you don't do these things, the public is going to be less safe. You know, our jails will suffer, fire departments will suffer, police department is going to suffer, sheriff's department, whatever safety you want to say. They make the argument that public safety is at risk. Do you see that kind of argument, you know, being weighed here where the sheriff is saying, if you don't pay me and if you don't kind of give me the financial control I'm asking for, well, then ultimately the safety of residents in this county could be in jeopardy?
Absolutely. And that's been the narrative all the way along. And of course, there is some truth to that, right? I mean, they law enforcement in particular needs certain tools. They need working cars, they need people. But for example, there was an incident in the jail where a jailer was hurt by an inmate. Well, his argument was the commissioners didn't approve the body worn cameras in time for the jailers to have them. But we know that most jails have cameras in their facilities anyway. So I'm not sure, one, what that would have done to prevent anything. And two, you have cameras. So if they're in working order and if you've been taking care of them and all these things. So, you know, to say that the jailers are at risk and the inmates are at risk because of one line item that has not been approved, it's frustrating. And you know, one of the things I mentioned in the article too is that in addition to all these things that he says are unpaid invoices, just 2 weeks prior, he was in front of commissioners asking for some other community outreach items like a dunk tank and a mascot to be purchased from the school zone cameras fund for events. And it's just really hard to take him seriously when you're asking for a dunk tank, but you're saying that inmate medical is on the line. So
Right. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Where do we go from here, right? I mean, he's written this letter to Kemp, so I guess I should ask first before then is, have county commissioners responded to that letter he sent Kemp?
they did. And I think knowing that Kemp really doesn't have any authority, they said, you know, we'd welcome any inquiry by anyone who wants to ask questions. They've been fairly transparent with records. Like if you ask for records, whether you're the media or the citizens, they do try to provide them in a timely manner. So I'm not surprised that they would be willing to provide them to the, I guess, higher ups, for lack of a better word. But they basically said, come on down. But where do we go from here? I'm not really sure. I mean, this has been a constant 4 to 5 year battle of just clashing and a lack of agreement on how to use taxpayer funds responsibly. And I think that it's going to continue to be like this. But I think we should look to the past as a predictor, which is that the commissioners do pay the bills that he requests be paid. It just may not be when he thinks it's timely because they have a better idea of revenue coming in other than just this one account he's talking about.
That makes sense. Have you heard, you know, as kind of a final question here, have you heard anything from residents in Burke County on your reporting? Are people frustrated with the situation? Does it seem like, you know, people are mainly in favor of the sheriff's actions? Are they not? Are people kind of divided? What's the feeling?
it's definitely divided. I mean, obviously, he has some support because he's been reelected twice. And so, there are people who are fiercely loyal to him. And then there is a very vocal group of people, and I would say it's a very large group of activists who are just trying to take all different kinds of approaches to holding him accountable for the money they're spending. And in some cases, it's personal. They don't like him. But in other cases, I think that the people just generally want the money to be spent appropriately, and even if not appropriately, just transparently, to be able to answer questions about where things are going. And so I think that, it is divided. There's always, in every community, there is a faction that is very much in favor of sunshine and transparency. And there's a growing group in Burke County, but they're just not the majority yet. So
Jessica, thank you so much for sharing your insight with us. Thank you so much for your reporting in Burke County. Always a pleasure to talk to you and to catch up. Can't wait for the next time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, we want to continue to keep you updated on news that happens throughout Georgia. So always a pleasure catching up with Jessica. We're going to talk to her more and more frequently about what you can expect in terms of government transparency and accountability in counties throughout our state. So thank you so much for watching. I do want to get a live look out at some of our cameras as we wait for these scattered storms to begin. You can see this look at the King and Queen building. Bodes pretty dreary, a little brighter than perhaps the airport where we just watched a flight take off moments ago. But expect scattered showers throughout the metro today. We're going to continue to keep you updated and check back in with meteorologist Alex Forbes. He will be giving us an update on the pollen count and what more we can expect coming up at 11. For now, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and then we will have Burgers with Buck second helping.